Hello, I'm going to review The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. So this was book 64 of 2020. The Memory Police are essentially some kind of totalitarian regime. It's not really quite clear who they are or what's happening. So you're in a kind of state of uncertainty as you're reading the book, so that's quite good about it. And things start kind of disappearing, so birds will disappear and they'll just no longer exist, and things like books will disappear, and it's strange because you're not really quite sure if they are disappearing or if people are just not remembering that they exist anymore, so you're a little bit unsure kind of what is happening. And it gets to the point where I'm probably going to do a lot of spoilers in this as well, so if you kind of don't want to know much about the book, then probably read it first, I suppose. But if you've read it, then I suppose you'll not be that bothered. Or if you're not bothered about spoilers, continue to listen. But at one point, the body parts start to disappear. Now, obviously, the body parts are still in existence, so it's at that point of the book that you kind of think, oh, actually, it's just the person's memory of these things that are disappearing. And so it's a little bit odd because essentially there are people in this society that are actually remembering the things that they're supposed to forget. And obviously, if you remember your body parts, then you're going to walk very different to people that have forgotten the body parts. Then they can kind of tell who you are, and they can come and get you. So the memory police can come and get you. During this kind of plot, because the protagonist is somebody who can remember things, you're always in a kind of state of, is she going to be discovered for remembering all these kind of objects that she's not supposed to remember? And she has kind of these objects that her mother secreted away when she was younger, and she doesn't really have any understanding of what they are. In fact, am I misremembering this? I feel like she is hiding someone in her kind of house who does remember things, and I actually think no, she forgets stuff because she can't remember what these objects are that her mum has, so she mustn't have this thing where she can remember stuff. But she's left with this essence that she can't quite discern. She kind of remembers these objects or things about these objects, like it's kind of vague in her memory, but she doesn't really know what they are. It's kind of disappeared. And essentially, when these memories disappear, people in the village kind of just go and burn all the objects. So they're kind of like forcibly removing anybody that doesn't conform to this. So the memory police, just turn up and take people away. So they took her mother away and she never saw her again. So that it's always this kind of like impending kind of doom that the memory police is going to find out that she's got these objects, or because she's not burnt them, or like they'll find that the man that she's hiding away because he still remembers things. So it's got that kind of fear element to it. I suppose it's a bit fantastical in the way that it is written, because obviously the thing that I mentioned before about body parts disappearing, the reality of that happening is, it's not going to happen, is it? But I suppose for me, I kind of viewed this as a kind of quaint exploration of how memories create our identity. So things like individual memories, social memories, cultural memories, they can create kind of who we are. And it also made me think about when you start to lose your memory through something like dementia or something like that, you will start to, you might have a feeling of something, but you start to forget things, and you might forget who you are, and you might forget, these kind of memories that make you who you are. So I kind of, when I viewed it from that lens, it kind of hit a different level for me when I was reading it. I was like, oh, this is like people forgetting things about where they've grown up, things about the world, things about themselves, seeing objects but not really understanding what they mean anymore, and then things like forgetting how to use parts of your own body, which does actually happen when you have degeneration of your brain. So I kind of thought that it was a nice exploration of that through a kind of story. What I would have preferred to have seen in this book would have been an understanding of what the memory police were, and kind of down that kind of avenue of totalitarianism. But I suppose that has been done before, and it's been done in other kind of books, and I suppose this book was more about memory and kind of, you know, the aspects of that within the kind of individual and societal and cultural aspects of that. So perhaps it wasn't appropriate to delve into it that much, but because it had that lack of extension that I was perhaps expecting when I first read it, you know, this was sold to me as a dystopian fiction, and lots of dystopia usually has political undertones. This kind of lacked that, and so for that reason I only really gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but there was things lacking for me that I would have preferred to be in there. So I mean, I'd recommend it for people to read if you just want an easy read, something to kind of entertain you for a bit, which, you know, oh, it's upside down, which most people do, so, you know, you'll probably enjoy it. But for me personally, there just wasn't enough in there, and I wouldn't be motivated to read anything else by this author for that reason. I felt there was a bit of a lack of depth to it, and I didn't think that the characterization was done to the standard that I kind of look for in books as well. So it was all right, but not for me.